Welcome to Life of Hair. My name's James Atkinson. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode. Now, this week's episode is all around the topic that I've kind of touched upon before, but never done a specific video about, and that is breaking the bass or bumping the bass or bass breaking or whatever you want to call it. I know some people don't like using the words break and hair in the same sentence, but in a nutshell, what we're doing is we're lifting the natural bass a couple of shades maximum, and this is a great service if you're then going to put highlights into it and you don't want a high contrast result from the root color. It's another great thing to do if you're going to reduce the contrast between the root color and the ends, and you've done a high contrast balayage and you want to go to something softer. Now remember, you can only break the bass or bump the bass on virgin hair. It cannot be pre-colored before, so this only works if the hair has not been lifted or tinted in the past. So you do need to know a little bit about your client's color history before you go ahead and do something like this. You can do this in between highlights, you can do it as you're going to see it done today. There's lots of ways of using it. I want to make other videos about it. I do a lot of bumping the bass in the salon. I think it's a very, very useful technique. And the way that I've used it today was as a sort of an interim, a different style of brightening up a balayage technique and giving my client an overall different vibe to her hair. I won't talk too much about it. You can see about it in the video in a second. I make these intros way too long anyway because I love to talk. And about practicing it, do it first of all on your highlight clients around the hairline and just watch it. Don't get it on the pre-existing highlights until you know you're comfortable with getting it right every single time. And just doing it on that front hairline will make your front hairlines on your highlights look absolutely seamless. So practice on your highlight clients, just dab it on around their hairline and just stand there and watch it. 5, 10, 15 minutes, and you will get beautifully blended results at that root area. As I said, just be really careful about those really, really light highlights. Just dab it on until you can control it with the product that you use. It's very hard for me to recommend the shade that would be appropriate for you because I don't know what range you're using. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and as I always say, do me the massive favour of hitting that thumbs up button, subscribing if you haven't already, chatting to me down in that comment section. Those things are massively helpful to growing the channel, and try and watch as much of this video as you can be bothered to watch. Switching off 5 minutes before the end is detrimental to my viewing statistics. So you are just doing me a massive favour if you stay to the end, basically. Thank you very much for your time. A big thank you to all my Patreons who have decided to take the Life of Hair education a step further and join in on our live sessions. If you'd like to know more about that, there's a link down in the description. If you want to know anything else other than what the link tells you, then please do not hesitate to get in touch. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you very, very soon. So this is our starting point for this particular technique. My client is a natural level 6 ash tone. We have done every balayage ombre combination known to man on my client. So this is no new trick to her, but just a nice way of refreshing her balayage without actually kind of going in and pre-lightening, etc. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the technique actually that I've been using very quickly, and then I'll talk about the product that I'm using. You'll note that I'm painting approximately 1 centimetre to 1 inch away from the roots. Now, obviously, this is because of the heat of the scalp. The scalp is 36.6 degrees, unless you've got a temperature or something else is going on. But the average human body temperature is 36.6 degrees. Now, this heat amplifies the power of the product. We're using permanent hair color here, and the heat from the scalp will give us hot roots if we don't just do that mid-zone first. So it's really important to bear that in mind if you've got a long regrowth like that and you're doing a technique like this, that you just go in and you just miss that first centimetre out. Everything beyond that is the same temperature as the room and will lift perfectly evenly. Plus, leaving those mid zones on a little bit longer is not the end of the world. Anyway, you know, going back in and doing your roots and processing for the full development time, happy days. So just remember that as you work through. Now, what products am I using? Good question. So this is a level 10 natural ash with ash additive and violet additive in it. So it's by a company called Behave. I've been using their products for a little bit now just to try them out. They sent them to me very kindly and I've been using them, and yeah, I've enjoyed them. They're permanent hair color range that takes in 10 minutes basically. And so the way that I've chosen the colors here is I've gone in with a level 10 because what I want to effectively do is refresh the ends as well. Now, because it's an alkaline hair color, the alkalinity and the peroxide, by the way, is just 10 volume. It's really, really important in these base breaking techniques that, you know, we utilize the products in a slightly different way. Now, I'm putting a base 10 onto a base 6, but I'm using 10 volume, so I'm going to get some lift, but I'm not going to suddenly get the sort of lift I'm going to get from 20 volume where I'm going to start exposing tons and tons of undertone and unwanted warmth and bring out all those oranges and yellows, especially the higher the volumes we go up to. So utilizing the correct product and sort of bending the way that we would normally use these products is really, really important. So if you're going to try this yourself on a client, you want a level 9 or a level 10. You want an ash tone, and preferably if you've got a darker base like a level 6 that will have those reddy orange undertones, you want some blue and some violet additive, or maybe just some blue additive. And those additives are just to increase the overall primary tone, to give it more coolness, to really control and anchor down the amount of warmth that you'll see as you lift the hair up. Now, sometimes you have to process these by eye. So don't walk away and just leave them, because you don't want to lift them too light. If you lift them too light, you know, you start exposing real high amounts of undertone and you haven't got the level of tone, being on a level 10, to cool down the oranges and yellows that you'll expose. So it's really, really important that you just make sure that you're only getting that 1 to 1.5 levels of lift. In this particular instance, we got more like 1.5 levels of lift out of this result. That was just retrospective of it being on fine hair. If it was on thicker hair with 10 volume, I'd have only got 1 level of lift. Absolutely guaranteed. But Sandy's hair's quite fine. It's fairly abundant. There's lots of individual hairs, but they're quite fine. And when you've got fine hair, always remember, guys, it lifts and deposits much easier than thicker, coarser hair. So I do get a little bit more than 1 level of lift out of this technique, but it works out. I've accounted for that in the end result. And my client Sandy is super laid back. She doesn't give a monkey's what I do to her hair. Now, here's an interesting thing, guys, and something that not many people seem to know, is that the only permanent change in a permanent hair colour is the permanent change to the natural pigment. Just let you think about that for a minute. Let me explain how that works. We've got an alkaline colour in the tube and we have a hydrogen peroxide in the bottle. When you mix hydrogen peroxide with an alkaline, you make simple bleach. Simple bleach goes in and lifts the natural hair colour, exposing the natural undertone. So we then have a lift and deposit hair colour. Most permanent colours lift and deposit. Then what we're getting is the depositing phase coming in later in the process. So the simple bleach goes in, lifts the natural colour, and then the new colour molecules go in and take over. This is why some clients that have permanent colour over the hair over and over again experience orangey fade. So it's really, really important that we bear these things in mind, especially if we've got those clients that say, my hair keeps going orange once it fades. It might be that they need a brunette shampoo It might be that they need to use something that is only acidic. It might be that you need to put a bonder into your permanent hair color if you've only got permanent hair color to color the ends with, to bring down the pH so it's not so alkaline. Because obviously when we're putting alkaline products onto the hair, we are opening the cuticles wide to get the product in as well, making the hair more porous and increasing the levels of fade. Something to think about, something to take into account when you're colouring hair with permanent hair colours. Now, while I've been talking here, I've gone back in and I've done my root area. I'm using tons of products and I'm just applying it liberally and pushing it through the sections to make sure it's on all of my root areas. And then I'm feeding that colour down into the blonde sections, but not all the way to the ends. The main reason for that are the ends are always very, very porous. I will colour the ends, but only for the last couple of minutes, just so they get a little bit of colour deposit. I don't want them to drop down darker. I just want them to be less yellow. You saw in the beginning, it was quite yellow. Now, the colour history to this particular colour was only a couple of goes ago. It was very, very coppery, and before that it was pink, I think. So it's got a lot of colour history. It's seen a lot of things. You know, as I said, Sandy's had a lot of hair colours. She's very experimental. In the half term, she's a teacher. In the half term, we have done her hair, lots of experimental colours. But in normal times, she experiments a lot with natural colours, coppers, blondes, you know, different shades of blondes. She's a really great client to have. So I very much enjoy doing her hair. So if you're watching this, Sandy, you know that I do enjoy doing your hair. I know that no one would believe that when I'm actually doing it, because I'm... And so now we've applied it to all of the root area, I'm going to go back and I'm going to saturate my ends and let it process for a few more minutes with it all the way through. Now, those mid zones that I started on before and didn't paint the roots, they've had well over full development time, but that's okay, because remember, the roots are hot. This is cooler. This is going to take longer to process, and the ends are going to be the last thing that we need to do anyway. I thought it'd be a good idea to take a look at the before picture just before we look at the finished picture, because sometimes we forget what it looked like in the start, save you going back. So we've got level 6 going into yellowy, very, very, you know, dingy blonde, and here is the finished result. We have lifted the natural base about 1.5 shades, as I said to you. We have blended out the transition nicely, and we have also toned down the ends, all in one foul swoop, one process, with tint, 10 volume, 10 level 10 ash with that blue violet kicker added in to keep it down a little bit, only a tiny bit, mind, but a great result for the amount of effort. I'm sure you will agree. And one of those techniques that when you practice it, you will come to love it. Have a wonderful week, and I shall see you again for another episode of The Life of Hair.